Hey everybody, this is Guy Midkiff with Wise Guy Talks. Today I have Victor Avila in here again, before, and we're going to be talking about his new book that just came out this week called Agent Under Fire. I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing Victor, what was it, about 3 months ago?
More or less,
something like that. And he described in detail over about a 2-hour period this heartbreaking shootout that he got into down in Mexico. He wrote a book on it, and here we are. So, Victor, what's going on with this book? Bring us up to date.
Super excited about the book, Guy. This is a process and a endeavor that I've been going through for the past several years, close to 5 years, and the passion that I had to write this book and the purpose was for me to be able to many things. One is to honor Special Agent Jaime Zapata. Other is to inform a lot of people that still don't know what happened to us in Mexico and what that matters to our national security and our continuing agents that serve abroad, not just in Mexico, but in all around the world. And to get people to know the perspective of a person that's worked on the border in Mexico and other places that really talk about a person that's been there and done that about our national security and our border security issues.
The mechanics of writing this book, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard was it?
10. It's super hard. I joke around with my wife and tell her that I went to college. I know how to write. Well, it's a completely different animal, if you will. It's a literary world that I wasn't aware of. I became very, very educated in that world of agents, literary agents, and publishers, and editing, and all that. But I started off with just putting my thoughts down on paper. And it started in Mexico, actually, when I was so busy in Mexico that I started doing Post-it notes. And I would put these Post-it notes, and I started being known as a Post-it note agent because I carry these Post-it notes all throughout the day, and at night I would write 2 or 3 words of what I did that day, and I would throw it in my closet or a drawer. And I had this huge collection of Post-it notes. That's where it started from.
So one of the things that I pride myself on is always reading the author's book before they come in so I can engage intelligently. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is the first time. I just didn't have enough time between. It's just too compressed with all the crazy COVID stuff going on. I could give you excuses out the wazoo. But one of the other things that I always like to do, and we didn't plan for this, so I have no idea how this is about to turn out, but I always like to have the author read a page or two of something that is critical in the book.
Oh my goodness, there's a lot of
grab that book right there.
We could let me grab my glasses here real quick.
Sorry, I really put you in the trick bag.
That's okay. So the book covers a little bit of a memoir of who I am, where I came from, my family, and then it moves into my career, and then of course talk about my assignment in Mexico. And then the second, and all the shooting and the aftermath of the shooting and the legal aspect of it. The second portion, the last portion of the book, the part 2 of it, is really talking about border security and what you can do and what we can do to better increase our national security from these cartels that pose what I believe an imminent threat to our country. So let me see, what kind of portion would you like to hear from?
What I always tell people in a pre-interview when I do this properly and not shotgun wedding the way we're doing this is I just say, tease the people with something that's going to make people want to go out and buy this book.
I could read you. This is what it says in the back cover. I mean, this is the simplest thing, but Agent Under Fire, A Murder and a Manifesto is a true story of unprecedented corruption, international intrigue, human trafficking, money laundering, drug running, mass murders, and government evasion. Chock full of page-turning stories and revelatory insights into Mexico's criminal underworld, this book moves beyond the everyday true crime memoir and delves into the larger questions of what it means for a family man to put his life on the line every day to topple some of the cruelest criminal organizations known to mankind. The book also serves as a manifesto exploring solutions to misguided immigration policies and offering a unique perspective on what it will take to control our southern border and protect vulnerable American lives.
Excellent. So when I look at the cover, I detect a couple things here. The name of the book, Murder and Manifesto. Where does the word manifesto come from?
I chose that word because it really, it's not just a memoir. It's really, it's real. And that's a stronger word that I want to use than a memoir or a true story. This is what I share in this book is personal. It is what happened, is what I've lived. And obviously the highlight of the book is I go into the shooting in detail, but also highlights my experience in dealing with different governments and negotiating with corrupt officials and the conditions that we were placed in, not just in Mexico, but other parts of the world as well. And so that's why I chose that word. And of course, the murder is because of the Agent Zapata's tragic death. You see the three bullet holes.
Yeah, I was going to ask this question. Is there a lot of symbology here? You've got 3 bullet holes in the American flag. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Well, the American flag, I needed it there because I'm a patriot and I love our country. When I was going through the shooting, and I think we want to mention this in the first interview, after when I was rescued, the helicopter showed up in Mexico and were taken to the hospital. I felt like such a foreigner in my own country of origin, where my parents were born. I felt I could have been in China, and I felt felt like such an American, and I truly felt a disconnect. Even being a Mexican American, I knew if there was ever any doubt in my mind, that there never was, but I felt passionately, proudly of being an American. And so I needed to have the American flag here. The 3 bullet holes you see is the 3 times that I was shot.
Okay, so I was curious what that meant. Are they in relationship to kind of in your body where you were shot?
Actually, no. I think that's just the way they ended up being placed. But I got shot once in the chest and twice in my left leg. And then if you see the bottom underneath my name is a blue line, and that's the blue line for all law enforcement as a tribute to law enforcement as a big supporter that I am of them.
So what do you think about all this defund police stuff that's going on? How does that ring in your ear?
It's incredible to me that we've seen it, that it's happening around our country. It's incredible that people don't want the police, but they don't want them until they need them. And so we've even seen in some of these cities where once these rioters and these looters come to their property and they are personally affected, the first person they call is the police, and they demand the police there to be there even faster for them. And so it's a bad journey and bad direction, and a dangerous one if we continue to go down that path in this country.
I think, well, I know for a fact you felt like there could potentially be some controversy, and I take a lot of pride in the fact that I helped out at a very low level in this cover. And you were concerned that maybe some people, veterans in particular, would take offense to the bullet holes. And so I said, I'll tell you what, I'm in contact with several hundred Marines, sailors, Army guys, and I will just send out emails to them, and I'll include a picture of this and ask them without any prep, just say, how do you feel about the bullet holes in this cover? And do you remember the responses that I sent back to you?
There were incredible responses, and I'll preface it by saying that I didn't want to offend. The bullet holes on the flag. The last thing I wanted to is disrespect our flag. I hold our flag very highly as a symbol of our freedom, and I display it in my house proudly. And so I was conflicted with the bullet holes. I didn't know that people would how they would take that, but after hearing from veterans and some of your friends, it was more of a badge of honor type of response that I was very, very grateful to hear, because our flag has been through battles, wars, and is still standing. And that's what this flag represents, and it makes me even prouder to have used it in this fashion.
So, how does the book begin? I mean, how do you open it up?
It tells you who Victor Avila is. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, in a border town, to a lower income family. My parents immigrated here legally. They first came, my dad to California, and then eventually moved to Texas, and that's where my twin sister and I were born. And so I give people the background of who I am, how I grew up, and what my upbringing was. And that was these values that were instilled by my parents of hard work and dedication. My mom still to this day has the certificates of me having 100% attendance at school. I didn't miss school. I had these certificates. I did not miss one day of school for many years. And that continued in my professional life. Yeah. And I move forward really quickly to tell you that even as a professional, when after I went to the shooting, I had a lot of sick time and time saved up because of that upbringing.
Some people consider you an American success story. You lived your parents for a brief period of time in the barrio of El Paso. Mm-hmm. Tell us, do you remember that at all?
Absolutely.
What was that like? And for you to become a federal law enforcement officer from that humble background, what does that say about what you can do in this country?
I'll tell you what, I'm an example of it, and it has to do with several things: hard work, God, education, family, those kind of values that my parents instilled on me and my sisters. And everyone in this country has that opportunity. And that's what makes me more proud of it, because the opportunities are there, and they sometimes hit your forehead with it, and you just have to be able to look at it and not ignore those opportunities, because I understand there's sometimes the opportunities are there, but people don't want them. You have to want to make those decisions as well. Now, I didn't make every perfect decision in my life or my career, but I made enough of the good ones to put me where I am. And especially these type of positions in law enforcement that you have to have a clean background and get different types of clearances. I was very fortunate to have that kind of a clean upbringing.
So Jaime's mom follows you quite closely.
Yes.
And she'll see this video. Why don't you speak to her for a moment?
Mr. and Mrs.
Speak to her in Spanish if you want.
No, it's okay. We communicate in English, and Mr. and Mrs. Zapata know that I've always done, continue, and will always continue to fight for justice for Jaime and their family. Even as we do this interview, we're still fighting for the court case that is not going to be presented to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I'm talking about the murder charge of Special Agent Jaime Zapata that was dismissed by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And so I am completely involved in seeking justice and having the executive privilege lifted from the Obama administration that blocked us from obtaining all our documents and all our FOIA requests to uncover what was happening with, for example, Fast and Furious and our botched assignment as well on Highway 57. So I will continue to be their voice as well. I think they know that, and everything that I do it with Jaime's intention. The presentations that I do for military groups and law enforcement groups are also a tribute to Jaime every time, because I want to make sure that his legacy and his death is not in vain, and it's something that that the people of the United States need to know about his sacrifice.
Let's focus on the shootout, the actual, once the lead started flying. Is it anything at all like what you see in the movies where time seems to slow down? Do you think about God? Do you think about anything, or are you just completely absorbed in the moment of survival?
For me, it was survival. For me, it was jump into type of the action that I could do right then and there, and is trying to escape from that situation. It's the flight, fight, or freeze type of thing. I went through all three of those in a span of 2 minutes. Now, Most police shootings happen in seconds. This shooting happened from the very beginning, from we were forced off the road to the very last bullet that went, and the 40 minutes that I waited for response time. The actual shooting portion was almost 2 minutes long, and in the law enforcement world is an eternity, and it was very difficult to navigate through that. So I didn't have a lot of times, people would describe it, my life flashed before my eyes. I thought about my kids. I thought about my wife. I did not. I thought about survival. I thought about keeping Jaime alive. I thought about seeking for help. I was on the phone, trying to do everything that I could in my power to get us to a safe position.
So as the shootout is going on, do you actually hear anything? Do you hear loud pops, or has sound kind of gone away? A lot of people, when they get into these situations, they talk about sound kind of gets turned off and it becomes very visual.
So, yeah, Guy, you hit a little bit. Sorry.
Take your time. Want some water?
I got my coffee.
Okay.
I got my coffee here.
So while we're regrouping here, Victor's book, you're going to be able to find it on Amazon, and also, what was the other publisher?
LibertyHillPublishing.com.
And you're going to...
And BarnesandNoble.com.
And you're developing a new website called?
AgentUnderFireBook.com.
And are you going to do your name as well? Will it be found?
VictorAvilaJr.com.
So you'll be able to find it in both places. You're going to put a link from the website of the book onto...
Absolutely, and it'll be on all my social media as well.
Is it Victor Avila Jr.? Or
yes, VictorAvilaJr.com.
Okay, so let's pick up. Obviously, it's a tough question, and in some ways, I feel bad, but I think it's important that people that are watching this understand the immense psychology and emotion that goes to a person's head in milliseconds, just like that. And so I want to get back to really understanding the moment, so that the viewer can at least have, even though they'll never be able to walk in your shoes, let's take them as closely as we can to it. And I was asking about sounds.
Yeah, the sound, and I dislike this word triggered, but it's really what it is. And it's funny you mentioned that word, because for many years after, I hadn't thought about the sounds now, and I'm not talking about the gunshot sounds here. I have hearing loss in my left ear because I was shot inches from my head, and so I have hearing loss in my left ear. But I'm able to go to the range, and I'm able to shoot guns. I thought that the gunpowder and the gunshots would be something that would keep me from ever shooting, and that's not the case. That's something that does not take me back to the scene. I'm okay. But there's other sounds there that I'm not going to describe here, because I think it's out of respect for
sure.
the Zapata family that are very personal, but I just want the people to know that there are some sounds and smells and other issues that sometimes do come back.
Do you think that this comes back in the form of PTSD?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm diagnosed with it, and it's something that it's controlled. There's a big misconception with PTSD, because there's a lot of facets of PTSD and a lot of different types of PTSD. I don't have the PTSD that people think, that I'm a danger to anyone or to myself. That's not the PTSD. As a matter of fact, my doctors have encouraged me to go out and shoot and carry all the guns that I want. My PTSD is very emotionally attached to Jaime and the incident there.
So you're something of a bon vivant, a new age man. I think didn't I read recently where you set some kind of a record with a pistol? Talk to us about that, brother.
The record was a great thing that happened this past summer. I'll plug USA One Shot. They're the ones that are responsible for this. USA One Shot is a company that has developed and invented a brace that It's a brace that stands alone. It's a very lightweight plastic type brace that you hold up to your handgun. It's made to any officer's sidearm, and they could carry this brace on their duty belt. And what it does, it makes your handgun become into like a mini rifle, because it becomes like a stock that really stabilizes your handgun and really makes you a great marksman. And so what they wanted to do is prove that in an active shooter situation of, God forbid, a school shooting or a mall shooting or a theater shooting, that the first responder police can grab the one shot, put it up to their handgun, and take the threat out with one shot. And so by doing this, I shot with a handgun, a 10 millimeter handgun, a world record of hitting a target on a standalone position, offset position, 2,010 yards. And
No way.
I hit that target, and I hit another one at 1,650 with a 10 millimeter Glock. And what they're trying to prove here is that if you could hit a target that far, over a mile, 25 yards, 75 yards is nothing for a police officer. Most police shootings happen between 7 and 10 feet. And so the one shot really just brings a lot of things to the police officer. Stability, calms them down, because as you know, the police officer is dealing with a lot of other issues in an active shooter situation. So that stability calms that officer down, is able to bring the sights up to his handgun and save lives.
So the muzzle velocity on 10 millimeters is like around 1,200 feet per minute, which is pretty slow in the big scheme of things. How do you figure the drop, the amount that the bullet is going to drop over 2,000 yards?
So we were set up at approximately 100 feet above, higher than the target below, and it was a 36 by 36 metal plate, and so that was taken into consideration, and it did take approximately 11 seconds for the round to hit. So I wasn't accustomed to that. I'm not a competitive shooter by any means, but I've had a lot of shooting in my experience and in my law enforcement career. And so it was something new, as anyone that's shot and shoots at a paper target or any kind of metal target, you're used to kind of right away looking at see where you shot and kind of evaluating that. In this case, I didn't have that. They asked me, you got to maintain that position, because as you can imagine, the target was moving all over the place. And once I was set there, I was constantly having to maintain that position. And so the coach that I had behind me, which was a previous world record holder, would tell me, you're hitting, one target to the right, one target to the left, or you're right on it. You're right. Like I had multiple rounds hit right underneath, right at the foot of the metal plate. But we didn't know if we were actually hitting the target until after we were done, drove down there, and there was a big celebration about it.
So you think you can beat me at 25 yards?
You're pretty good. You're a pretty good guy.
Yeah, well, that looked like you had a lot of fun when you were, what was that, in Arizona, Utah?
That was in Nevada, northern Nevada, kind of east of Reno area.
That's outstanding. So did that record get published anywhere? Or?
Oh yeah, it got published. It was released in the media. People can also find it on my Facebook page and Victor Avila Facebook page and my Twitter. My Twitter is @VicSurvivor11. And so it was something that some interviews came about that, and I've talked about it. It's a great accomplishment. It just really, I believe in the product on top of everything. I wish that this company could get them into the hands of a lot of law enforcement officers.
Do you think that this book will change people's lives, will bring information to them that they may not have been aware of? I mean, after I read this book, hopefully I'm going to end up with a signed copy before you leave. But that was a gentle hint, brother.
Of course.
What am I going to take away from it if I didn't know Victor Avila from John Smith? I mean,
it's going to bring you a lot of awareness. It's going to teach you about federal law enforcement work. I've cited in the book, and I've talked about a couple of cases that I've had as a transition to the book. It is a book. People, I understand, want to be entertained by it. And everything that is in this book is factual and is what I lived and went through, even some of the scenarios that I put in there in arrests. but most importantly, it brings two things. It brings the awareness of the dangers that our agents face abroad, not just in Mexico, but all around the world. Second, the second part of the book is really teaches people, and they might have heard some of it before, but now you get to hear it from a person, from the perspective of a person that was on the ground. I'm not a person that went down there and stood in front of the wall for 5 minutes and tell you that I'm an expert at it. I've worked the border. I've worked on both sides of the border, and lived on the border, and really bring you that perspective, especially when it comes to human trafficking, human smuggling, money laundering, drug trafficking, and the effects that it has in our country, and especially with the cartels.
Some of the people that are going to be listening to this are seek a career in the literary arts, and they're trying to figure out what their path could be if they want to write a book. And what advice would you give them? I'll just back up and say that hopefully you'll be a little more kind than Ernest Hemingway when he was in Havana, Cuba in the late 50s. An author had come up to him while he was drinking his favorite drink, the daiquiri, and he said, "Could you take a quick scan of my book and give me some advice?" And he read it for about 5 minutes. He takes the book, puts it on the bar, and he looks at the author, the young budding author, and he goes, "Find a new career." So let's not give that recommendation.
No, no, of course not.
What would you recommend? I mean, what advice could give us a couple points?
Number one advice is don't give up. I initially had this thought in my mind that I'm going to write this book and I'm going to get a publisher. By the way, let me start by saying this is that I didn't write this book to make any money. This as a matter of fact, I've invested money to write this book. My intention is to have the story written forever. That's how important it is to me. But I understand publishers, obviously, you have to sell a book, and I'm okay with that. But I thought when I started this, it's going to be a publisher. They're going to offer me an advance, and it's going to be kind of like what you see celebrities do, right, all the time. That's not quite the case that happened to me. I did have literary agents represent me at the beginning. It didn't work out. I ended up writing book proposals, which is a process that I wasn't even aware of. A proposal, which is about a 75-page document that has a couple of chapters of the book written in it. It has statistics. It has biographies of the author. It's a professional proposal that is submitted to the publishing companies, and I did that, and it wouldn't. People wouldn't bite. They just I'm a first-time author. There's no name recognition, and so it's very difficult to get them to pay attention to that. So eventually, I rewrote a brand new proposal. And I got to a point where I ended up writing a third proposal for Crown Publishing, and we got close. We got close with Crown Publishing for them to offer something, but at the end they passed. And so I was back at square one, and it was very, very demoralizing to think, when is this going to ever happen? And that's why I say never give up. And I didn't. And I continued, and I continued, and I networked. And every person that I spoke with that had any kind of avenue to book writing or other authors, journalists, I would talk to them about it, get their advice, and eventually I, with the brand new proposal, was able to then put that out until Liberty Hill Publishing said, "We'll publish your book." And Liberty Hill Publishing is it's about one step above self-publishing. They didn't offer me any money to write this book, but they do offer the services of the distribution and all that, which I wanted that. I did need that kind of help. But most importantly, I was able to team up now that I had all these notes and I had all these chapters written in kind of in a convoluted kind of a way. I had a ghostwriter help me put the book together in a book format. You want to read a book that's entertaining, and there's a certain way you write a book, and I needed help doing that. And so I did get that help. And eventually, believe it or not, COVID helped me, because when COVID hit and everything kind of shut down, then all of a sudden I had the time, and I really sat down and finished writing the book with a ghostwriter, and here we are with a finished version. I'm very proud of it.
One of the words you used, and you got my attention right off the bat was the word networking. And I talk to my children all the time about the value of networking and how you can't even begin to put a price on it, but how vitally it is important no matter whether you go to medical school, you're a local entrepreneur, you have a yard improvement business. I mean, whatever it is, I just don't believe you can say enough about networking. How valuable has networking been to you? What networks did you go to help push this book out?
That is so important. I actually talked about this last night. I did a Zoom call for my high school. Del Valle High School in El Paso, Texas, reached out to me because of the book, and they do an author interview. And of course, being a graduate from the high school, I was very, very happy to do that. And that was one of the main topics that I talked to them about. I said, listen, the context you start now as a high schooler till the rest of your life, some contacts will leave, some will stay, but you just never know what your friends and contacts are going to become later on in life. And maintaining those contacts is very important. And I'll admit, I was that type of person before that I would meet a lot of people and had all these business cards, and I just kind of had them stored there. But a friend of mine, a retired Secret Service agent, is the one that taught me and said, listen, you have to follow up. After you meet these people in conferences, you got to follow up with an email. You got to follow up with a phone call. And I started doing that years ago. And it changed. It immediately changed the networking. The doors completely continue to open up. I mean, I'm very proud of the endorsements that I have for my book from, Fox News contributors, congressmen, federal agents. They're all, by the way, they're all authors. Why did I get these endorsements? Because I've gotten to know them. They've gotten to know me, and I've maintained those networking contacts. And this question came from actual class from my high school that I spoke to yesterday, and they're in this English class that focuses on writing books, and there's a lot of students there that are prospective authors or future authors possibly. And the question I got is how do you keep the book flowing and the interest of the reader? And I thought it was an excellent question, because I remember talking to the publisher, and when I was discussing this with the ghostwriter, it's probably the most intricate part of the process of the book is you just can't go from one subject to another and kind of tell a story. You got to have that interest. After all is said and done, the book has to be interesting and entertaining as well. I understand that. And what I did is I included in there real stories and real arrests that I did in my career, and included those throughout the book to kind of show that, when I started doing this, oh, by the way, this, I included this arrest and not in so much detail, but arrests that were an impact in my career and how it led to my assignment in Mexico. The same thing kind of goes, because it did have that impact. So I included those stories, and it really put together and the flowing really well.
So it's almost as if you left out little breadcrumbs along the trail leading up to the culmination, the
Right.
most intense part, and those little breadcrumbs are there to keep people interested in the journey along the book.
Right, and it always, as a law enforcement officer, people are really interested in the police work, the stuff you see on TV, right? The arrest. Yes, we did a lot of that as well. Most of it is not what you see on TV, but there are cases that we did do what you do see in movies, and so I included some of those and that are real arrests, real life situations, and rescues of women and children, and arrests of drug traffickers in there.
So in the Marine Corps, we like to rib each other and give each other a hard time, prima donnas, and just anything that we could poke fun at people. Are your law enforcement buddies like that at all? Do they kind of poke fun at you, and you guys kind of...
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody had a nickname, especially in Mexico. They call me Trips, because I was the number one traveler in Mexico. Not because, and we're not talking about traveler for leisure here. This is all work related travel, and I just came at them with the reason I'm traveling is because I'm working, and that's the way. That's what they call me, Trips. Because of the extensive travel that I did around the country of Mexico and Central America and the U.S.
So if there's a booking agent out there or somebody that has a podcast like Dan Bongino, and they want to book you to get you on to their show to talk about Agent Under Fire, what's the best, easiest way? I don't really want you to give a phone number out here unless you have a Google phone number. But otherwise, what is the simplest email, Facebook, whatever? The best way to reach out?
Two places, Twitter, at VicSurvivor11.
Say that slowly.
At Vic, V-I-C, Survivor 11, 1. At VicSurvivor11 is my Twitter account. And second, they could email me at vsurvivor11@gmail.com. vsurvivor11@gmail.com.
Okay. So that's how they can book you. So I think a lot of the success will go back to your skills as a networking specialist. And as there's enthusiasm created around the book, you'll be doing more and more interviews. Do you have any interviews coming up now on the book?
I do. I did that one yesterday. I have a radio show early next week, and several others that are podcasts that are booked. I just did another one with Blunt Force Truth, where Chuck Woolery is the co-host, and Mark Young was.
Well, tell us about that one, Chuck Woolery.
Chuck Woolery, if you guys remember, used to be a TV personality and host of Love Connection, and a big patriot and conservative American. He holds a podcast named Blunt Force Truth, and him and Mark Young, which Mark Young is an author, and he's one of the people that endorsed my book as well. And so I got on their podcast last week and talked about the book. And I have many others that will continue. The press release just went out this week. The official press release went out. And I will continue to have those interviews. Don Bongino would be a great one to have. And hopefully I'll get on some of these networks too as well. I'm working on I've already contacted One American News Network. They will have me on.
Love those guys.
Yeah, so that's the publisher obviously asks for me to do that, and I'm really happy to do that, to sell some copies. I heard just yesterday somebody tried to order my book on Amazon, is already on back order, so that's good news.
Well, where's the hard copy? You bring in all the soft.
I know.
I was hoping to get a hard copy.
The hard copies are they're being printed. There's been a lot of issues with printers, not just for me, but for across the literary world because of COVID, and there's a printing delays. And so I'll get my hard copies here in the next couple of days.
There's a law enforcement group that has interviewed you before. What's the name of them, and are you going to do an interview with them? I think they're out of New York.
Are we talking about the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association?
That's the one.
The Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, or better known as FLEOA, have been a great advocate and supporter of me and my family since day one of the shooting. I'm a member. They have approximately 22,000 federal law enforcement officers that they represent, and over 60,000 membership within that organization. I have already interviewed with them. They put out an email blast just yesterday, and so I had a lot of response from a lot of ex-coworkers of mine and law enforcement officers that might not have social media, but they're connected through FLEOA. And they've also been great advocates on Capitol Hill to what we're trying to do here is change the law that I mentioned earlier about the murder statute that was dismissed. They are big advocates to get this law changed, and we will get it changed.
How much is the soft on Amazon? How much does this one cost? And then how much is a hard
what I was going to say about the if it's on back order on Amazon, you go to barnesandnoble.com, and they have two versions. The paperback version is, I think, $19.95, and the hardcover is $34.95. The same price on all avenues or all websites. You can also go to libertyhillpublishing.com, which actually will be the fastest way to get it. It's directly through the publisher. So libertyhillpublishing.com, and it has both versions on there as well.
What is best for you? I mean, you've obviously made a huge investment, Amazon as opposed to Liberty Hill. Is there any price differential? What comes back to you?
The royalties are different. Amazon is the good one because it has the obviously worldwide audience, and so is barnesandnoble.com. But but Liberty Hill Publishing .com is the royalties. I end up getting a little bit more of that through them because there's no middleman. It's directly between me and just the publisher.
And we're about to sign off here, but you've got at the top of the pyramid for connectivity as well. For people that want to find out about your book, would be VictorAvilaJr.com. Is that correct?
Yeah. The best way they could do that is actually right now they just go to my Facebook, go to Victor Avila Facebook page, and you'll get all the information there as well.
Okay, but eventually this website will be fully built out. You'll have a link to agentunderfire.com. That'll be on there.
Yes.
And then also the Amazon, Liberty Hill, and any other Barnes & Noble. There'll be links there.
Correct.
And have people started leaving comments on the book yet?
They're starting to, and that's actually a big aspect of it. The reviews and the comments are something that drive analytically to these.
Sure.
It's a very important part of that. And so, yes, if you do leave a comment or a review, that's very much appreciated because Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all of them, and Liberty Hill Publishing as well, will, based on those responses, move the book up to a different level.
Yeah, the artificial intelligence and the way that the algorithms work, the more comments that are left, particularly favorable comments that are left, it drives traffic. It becomes a self-licking ice cream cone at that point. It just kind of, so. Well, do you have anything you want to close with? Do you think I left out anything in the interview?
No, this is thank you for allowing me again to talk about the book. It's I'm very proud of it. Everybody asked me, will you write a second one? The second one's supposed to come a lot easier. And at first I would initially shut it down and say, no, this is it. But now, I don't know, I might have a second book in me.
Really? You want to tease us with that a little bit?
Might involve some politics.
Aha. Okay. Different issue, but we can talk about that another time. Thank you for listening to Wise Guy Talks. I do appreciate it. And same thing goes for me. This will be up on YouTube. I would appreciate you giving it a like, giving it a comment, passing the link around so we can get Victor's book out to like-minded people, shall we say. It's been a pleasure having you listen to Wise Guy Talks. Have a great day. Have a blessed day. God bless America. Thank you.